So the movie The Lighthouse, starring William Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, that came out about 3 months ago back in the States, actually just got released here today in the UK. It only came out today, at least where I live. It came out today. So I saw this movie at the theatre today. We went to initially see something else, however, it wasn't on. So we just decided to see whatever was the most on at a most convenient time, and it turned out to be this movie, The Lighthouse, because I really had no interest in this movie. And though obviously those of you who have seen other reviews of this movie but haven't actually seen it yet are probably thinking that this movie's some kind of masterpiece, because I saw a couple of reviews for this movie a couple months back when it was first out. You had people calling this movie a 10 out of 10. It got something like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, or I think it might have gone down to like 98 or something, but I think at one point this had like a perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes. You had big time critics like Chris Stuckman giving it an A plus and saying it was the greatest movie of last year, the greatest movie of this decade, saying it was a masterpiece, and it was just one of the most subversive and most amazing cinema experiences you've ever seen. Requires multiple viewings. It's a modern day Blade Runner, a modern day Citizen Kane. You just have to see this movie. It's so amazing. Let's just hold our horses a little bit here. So I want to give a big shout out, a huge shout out to my boy Fight Scout. My man Fight Scout told me about this movie a few days ago on my Afterlife review. I reviewed the movie Afterlife with Liam Neeson. It came out several years back, 2008, 2009, sorry. And yeah, my man Fight Scout just randomly out of the blue commented on that video and told me about this movie and said, yeah, this movie's sucks. It was straight up garbage, talking about The Lighthouse. And I was more inclined to believe Fight Scout than I was to believe somebody like Chris Stuckman, who I know is a verified shill critic for Rotten Tomatoes, and all these other guys on Rotten Tomatoes, all these, artsy fartsy, Hollywood paid shills who were drooling over this movie, who were slabbering over this movie, saying it was the greatest thing they'd ever seen, and it was like a masterpiece of modern cinema. I've only got one thing to ask you guys. I've got a question for you guys who saw this movie and who are saying how good it was. What the fuck is wrong with you? That's a serious question. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be satirical. I'm asking you guys a genuine question out of genuine concern. If you liked this movie, right? If you sat and watched this movie and enjoyed it, please admit yourself to the nearest psychiatric care unit, because you are sick in the head. I'm not even kidding. You've got severe mental health problems if you saw this movie and you enjoyed it. This was one of the worst movies, one of the most despicable movies I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, I knew nothing about the people behind this movie when I went to see it. However, when we came back, my girlfriend did some quick research, and she told me that the guy who directed this movie was the same guy who directed that piece of shit The Witch. You guys remember that movie from, I think, 2016, was it? And again, that was another movie that critics were gushing over, saying it was amazing, it was just so subversive, and it's a masterpiece of modern cinema, and it was so scary. And then I remember we watched that movie when it came out, The Witch. And we were just like, that was trash, that was boring, it was a load of shit, it made no sense, it wasn't even scary, wasn't even well acted, it sucked. And even if you read comments on that movie, The Witch, everybody in the, you see reviews giving it a 10 out of 10 and all that, but people in the comments are saying, yeah, it wasn't that good, kind of sucked. Well, it's the same situation here. Let me describe this movie to you. All right, but before I even get to talking about the way the movie is filmed and just the certain choices they made in terms of camera work and cinematography, let me just describe to you guys a couple of scenes of this movie. And just tell you guys some of the things that happen, because I can't put it into words in a clever way. I just have to tell you guys what happens. There's a scene of this movie where Robert Pattinson puts a lead on William Dafoe and walks him like a dog. Guys, just let that sink in, please. Let that sink in. Think about that. Try and picture that in your mind. Try and imagine seeing that happen on screen. William Dafoe is on a lead being walked across the ground like a dog by Robert Pattinson, and William Dafoe's barking like a dog. This is a movie where there are about 4 or 5, maybe even more, scenes of Robert Pattinson jacking off to a toy mermaid. Guys, if you haven't seen this movie, can you please close your eyes and please picture that? Please picture that. Robert Pattinson jacking off to a toy mermaid happens about 4 or 5 times in this movie. Because that's what you want to see in a movie, isn't it? That's the type of thing, when you go to the cinema for some entertainment, you want to see Robert Pattinson jacking off to a toy mermaid. Robert Pattinson jacking off to a toy mermaid, that's what you call a masterpiece of modern cinema. That's a 10 out of 10 movie, right there. 4 or 5 scenes of Robert Pattinson jacking off to a toy mermaid. That's a 10 out of 10 movie right there. Any critic, right, who gave this movie a 10 out of 10, I want to give them a fucking wedgie. I want to bitch slap them. I'm not even kidding. You piece of shit. You piece of shit. Giving someone like Chris Stuckman, I swear, these people on Rotten Tomatoes giving this a 10 out of 10, A+, calling it the greatest thing they've ever seen, giving it #1 movie last year. So this movie's better than Joker. So this movie's better than Parasite. So this movie's better than Rambo. So this movie's better than Endgame. So this movie's better than Avengement. This movie's better than all those movies, really. You would rather watch Robert Pattinson jacking off to a plastic mermaid than watch a good movie. Guys, I'm flabbergasted. I don't know what to say. This is a movie where Robert Pattinson and William Dafoe get drunk and they slow dance. They slow dance like something out of the movie Ghost, like something out of a Patrick Swayze movie. It's like Patrick Swayze slow dancing with Demi Moore, except it's William Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. They look into each other's eyes like they're about to start shoving their tongue down each other's throats. And rather than shove their tongue down each other's throats, they start fighting. They start punching fuck out of one another. That happens in this movie. Guys, Robert Pattinson jacking off to a toy mermaid. William Dafoe barking like a dog while walking on all fours on a leash. William Dafoe and Robert Pattinson slow dancing, looking like they're about to kiss. William Dafoe gets naked and lies down having an orgasm staring at a light. Does that sound... I'm sorry, does that sound like a 10 out of 10 movie to you? Does that sound like a masterpiece of modern cinema? And I haven't even gotten to some of the worst bits. I haven't even started talking about the choices that were made in terms of this film's budget and the way it was made. This film is filmed... What's the aspect ratio of this movie? It's like... I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's the aspect ratio of old YouTube videos from 2007. Do you guys remember how YouTube back in the day, they used to have that, I think they call it letterboxing or whatever, where you have the big black thing at the side and you only see sort of the middle of the screen. Like I said, like a 2007 YouTube video. That's the aspect ratio that this movie is filmed in. This movie is also in black and white. Why is it in black and white? No idea. Now, don't get me wrong, I like some black and white movies. I like the movie Raging Bull, for example. Okay, I like some old movies from the 40s and 50s and whatnot that were in black and white. There's a lot of old films, retro films that I like to watch in black and white. Raging Bull sort of made that decision because it was reminiscent of when you watch those fights from the 1930s and 40s on TV. They were in black and white, so they decided to film that film in black and white for authenticity and to make it look more retro and more from the time. Why was this movie in black and white? Why? Because I can't think of a single reason. All it did was make it so that you couldn't really experience any of the scenery, because the movie had quite an interesting and cool looking location. They say it was filmed in Canada, on the coast somewhere. They had a cool looking little island with a lighthouse. There was some scenery there. There was some good views, but you can't experience it because you can barely see the screen because it's so small. And it's in black and white. What did that add to the experience? What did this movie being in that aspect ratio and being in black and white actually add to the experience of this movie? Please tell me, because I can't think of a single thing that added to the experience except making it a worse experience. Shame on any critic that gave this movie a good score. Shame on anybody who pretended to like this movie. I saw this in a packed theatre. I think one couple walked out, which was surprising to me because when I saw Underwater, several people walked out. When I saw Black Christmas, a lot of people walked out. Is this as bad as Black Christmas? Probably not. Black Christmas was the worst film I've ever seen, but this came out around about the same time as that, and it's certainly up there. This definitely can give that movie a rival for one of the worst films ever. If I'd seen this movie last year, and like I said, it didn't come out until this year. It didn't come out until today actually over here. But if I'd seen this film back when it came out, this definitely would have been on my top 10 worst movies of the year list, alongside movies like Black Christmas and whatnot. Captain Marvel and all that shit. Um, what was a lot of these movies are really forgettable. I had a whole list of movies I didn't like last year. You had like Charlie's Angels and whatnot. There was so many shit movies, but Black Christmas was the worst. This would have been a rival to that if I'd have seen it last year. This is the biggest, most overrated piece of garbage I have ever seen. This is, without a doubt, the most overrated movie of all time. Because, like I said, critics were gushing over this movie. They were drooling over this movie. I think every single one of these critics, well, either they were paid off. You had to have been paid off to say you like this movie. Either that, or you're just a sick in the head sexual deviant. Because this is a movie. This is like a snuff film. That's what this is like. This is like, when you go into like a movie store and they have like a top shelf that has all the X-rated movies with all the disgusting porn shit. Like that's what this movie's like. It's like a disgusting porno. So shame on everybody involved in the making of this movie. That's all I've got to say about it. Thanks for watching. The movie gets a 1 out of 10. It'll certainly be added to my 1 out of 10 playlist. Thanks for watching, guys. Yeah, God bless. I feel sick after seeing this movie, man. I feel sick to my stomach. God bless.